Who says there are no seasons in Florida? In our real estate business, we get asked about hurricane season pretty frequently. Hi, I'm Terry Pasquarelli, MVP Realty. And every year, it's worth reviewing all of the things that you can be doing, whether you're living in Florida now or thinking about moving to Florida, to be prepared for hurricane season. It's important to have a plan to take care of your property, and more importantly, to take care of yourself, your family, and your pets. And so we have a series of videos here for you, informational videos that will help you develop and update your plan to be prepared. And we talk about the impacts of hurricane season potentially in the real estate market. Our real estate contracts here in Florida are designed to help us navigate through hurricane season with a minimal disruption as much as possible. And it's also important to know what about hurricane season could hold up a closing. And we discuss all of that in this video series. So take a look at this video and all the videos in this series and refresh your plan to be prepared for the potential of hurricane season here in Florida. As a bonus tip, if you're watching this early in the season, take advantage of the Florida tax holiday that's in place early in hurricane season each year. It can help you to get tax relief on simple purchases like food for your pets if it's under a certain dollar amount, or perhaps the purchase of a generator, which can help protect your home. So all these tips are available to you. Refresh your plan, be prepared, and if you have questions about real estate because of hurricane season or for any other reason, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Contact information is below this video, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Well, hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Terry with MVP Realty.
I'm Rich with MVP Realty.
And we want to talk a little bit about the upcoming weather season.
Yes.
And its impact on contracts and closings for buyers and sellers in real estate in the state of Florida.
Right, a little different than what you would find in many other areas, but so we have to get into this a little bit.
Right, now technically hurricane season starts up June 1st?
June 1st through November 30th.
Right, which is kind of sounds like a long season, and yet all months are not created equal in that season.
Right. The peak is going to be around September, so usually June and July are pretty quiet, and August you start, taking notice. So.
Right, and yet every once in a while we get some kind of a maybe subtropical or tropical type of storm that will come through now, even in the second half of May.
Absolutely.
So while it's not technically hurricane season, it's about that time that you start thinking, as you said, about what's to come and being prepared. It's not hesitating, it's just being ready.
Right.
And as it comes to real estate, there is something in each of the Florida real estate contracts that anticipates that things could happen that are outside of all of the parties' control.
Right.
So everybody in the contract wants to perform, but they can't. Maybe they can't get closing services.
Right.
They can't get their insurance to be closed. They can't have, maybe the bank is closed. There's no, transferring of funds in an acute situation.
Right.
If weather were to come. And we have to remember in Florida, we have two different contracts that are really used a lot.
At least in our part of Florida, yes.
So the Florida contract, they call the FAR Bar contract, that's been put together by the Florida Realtors and the Bar Association, is used in the majority of the state. And in areas not far from us here in Naples, in Southwest Florida, that contract is definitely used, and it can be used in Naples. And yet, because we are in Naples, in Collier County, we have an alternate contract, the NABOR contract, Naples Area Board of Realtors, and there are some differences. And I think the biggest kind of category that we're talking about that is in both contracts is the force majeure.
Right.
And that is usually anticipating, again, it could be a hurricane, it could be some other kind of act of nature, or some kind of, kind of terroristic type of thing.
Right.
And interestingly, in the Florida contract, when they did their latest update, they added some new categories that have nothing to do with hurricanes, but have to do with things that are outside your control.
Well, yes,
that's quite interesting.
We've learned over the past 2 years that there are other factors that could delay a closing for one reason or another.
Right, and make unavailable the services that are required to complete a closing for all the things we talked about. And so in the Florida contract, just to be aware, we now have categories that include epidemics, pandemics, and government shutdowns.
Right.
That standard language wasn't there even just, as you said, 2 years
Two
ago.
years ago, exactly.
And we had to hurry and actually get a couple of amendments through to take care of things that happened from 2020 and 2021.
Right.
But now with the latest revision to that contract, it's baked right in.
It's already inside.
It's baked
that.
right in.
Right.
And what does it mean? It means that when those closing services are not available to the seller and the buyer, that the contract acknowledges nobody is in breach of contract because of that. Everybody wants to fulfill their obligations. They need to reset the timelines around certain activities to allow for those services to come back online. And there are differences then between how the Florida contract and the Naples contract deal with that. How many days they give you, what the standard turnaround time is to get back on track.
Right.
And if it was to be a really prolonged issue, that people have rights at some point over 30 or 35 days to terminate a contract.
Right.
Because you can't necessarily continue if the situation doesn't allow. But what's the impact to a buyer and a seller? I'm not sure that every buyer and seller knows the intricacies of these contracts and which paragraphs to check out.
Well,
but who could help?
That's the thing, is that, you know, your agent, you know, has to be aware of the differences in those two contracts. And if we're in hurricane season, you have to anticipate that something could come up, and he or she, they need to be able to react knowing already what's in that contract and maybe writing on a certain contract in anticipation for that. So it's very important that that you are dealing with people that understand and know what's in those contracts.
Right, and are looking out for protecting everybody's best rights and opportunities based on the particulars of your situation. People sometimes have consecutive closings. They're selling one property to move into another, and you have the timing of moving trucks and getting out of one house, and is the other one ready? Right. Well, what if it's that second one that's under some kind of cone of uncertainty because of weather? And services are not available. It can have a big domino effect and a stress effect. The
power can go out for a few days, and obviously if the power's out, you can't close. I mean, the closing companies are not able to operate. You can't wire funds and so on. So.
And usually these things are quite temporary.
Right.
And everybody gets back online. One of the things we certainly have learned are a lot of the virtual tools that are available that actually really came to the forefront during the pandemic, but in a good way will stay with us.
Right.
However, it doesn't overcome everything.
Right.
And so there are still these situations that could come up. And as much as people talk to us about weather in Florida and, you know, they're concerned perhaps about, is another hurricane going to come? I think everywhere we've ever lived, there's been weather.
Sure.
And it might come in a different form.
That's right.
And a different challenge. So, you know, it could be a seller here is waiting for funds from a buyer in another part of the country. Maybe they're having tornado season.
They could have a
and
blizzard.
The same thing could happen with this force majeure in the contract in another state that is going to kick in and have an impact on the timing of that closing and therefore the domino effect to a closing here.
Right.
So it's not just Florida weather to be aware of. I think it's to be aware of these concepts and that they are anticipated and, as you said, baked in now, you know, to contracts to allow everybody to have as orderly a transaction as they possibly can. But you don't want to be thrown for a loop by it. And if there's one thing that can happen, even if the other services could technically be available, that could put the brakes for the short term on a closing, it's insurance.
Right.
And so maybe you can comment a little bit on that cone of uncertainty and why insurance of all things is something that we really have a lot of conversations with our buyers and sellers about.
Exactly. And it's, you know, what I like to call it the cone of hysteria, and as soon as you are within that cone, everybody's running to the stores and buying all the stuff that they should have bought 3 months ago. And then if you're buying a home and you become your new home is inside that cone, an insurance company is not going to bind your policy.
And being in a cone of uncertainty doesn't mean you're under a storm.
No.
The storm may never come.
It could be clear skies, and absolutely you're having a great time outside.
But the National Weather Service or the hurricane...
But they said it's possibility that it can, a hurricane or any kind of a tropical storm could pass by there. And if it is, an insurance company, they're not going to, place their bet. So they're going to say, let's wait until you're not in that cone.
Absolutely. Now,
So-
we had that happen to us.
Yes. Yep.
The first time we built a home and were ready to close in Florida, the closing was to be in June too. It wasn't September, it was
Right.
June. And everything was ready. Funds were ready.
The weather was beautiful.
The weather was beautiful, but there was the potential for a tropical storm off the coast, and then they put that cone into place of its possible track.
Right.
And we had to wait a week
Yes.
because we couldn't finish. The insurance company just shut down and said, we want to see if these buildings are still standing when the cone is gone and what shape they're in, and they did not want to bind insurance.
Right. And it ended up for us, we never really got anything at all. And it lasted for a couple of days, and then we were outside the cone, and the insurance company said, okay, fine. And people down here, closing companies, insurance companies, when you're dealing with insurance companies in Florida and you're dealing with lenders in Florida, they understand that. They know how to, they've seen it before, they know how it works. Where we do run into a problem is when you're dealing with an insurance company or a lender that's not in Florida that doesn't understand that.
And that can just add to the complications.
That's right.
Because it could happen to anybody, including with a Florida
Sure.
provider.
Right.
But they do rebound pretty quickly. They know what to do. They know their sort of backup plans.
Right.
And one of the things we do talk to people about early in the process, throughout that kind of weather season, is if you are on the buying side, really get ahead of that whole insurance process.
Right, 'cause you
Don't
can
wait
help
to the
yourself.
last minute.
That's
You
right.
can help yourself. Get a binder for insurance, and depending on the insurer and the status of the impending potential of weather, with a bound insurance policy, closings often go through.
Right.
But if the insurance hasn't been bound yet
Then,
and committed
right.
to,
Right.
then the brakes are on.
Exactly. So it's important for you to understand how that works in Florida, and to be able to be proactive in your
prepared.
and to be prepared, not scared, is what I heard somebody
Oh,
say.
that's right. I know a weather guy who knows that routine. And I think that these are the reasons that conversations with your real estate professional, like working with us early and through the process, it's a lot of little things that can hopefully take stress out of a system
Right.
and out of someone's experience, and help them understand how we can help make things happen,
Right.
and how we can work with contracts that are really there to protect everybody and the investments that people are trying to make as they buy and sell real estate in the state of Florida.
Absolutely.
So I'd say if you have found some value in this conversation, I hope you'll give this video a thumbs up. We really appreciate it. And leave a comment below if there are any other questions you have related to this, or if you can share an experience that you've had buying and selling a home in Florida during our technical hurricane season. And if you haven't yet, I'd encourage you also to please consider subscribing to the channel. For those who have, thank you so much. You're helping our channel to grow and to have this information shared with a wider audience all the time. If you haven't yet, if you hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, you'll be among the first to know every time we post a new episode
But
to
how
this
much does
channel.
that cost?
You know what? It's free.
Oh,
Is there anything
Thank
in life
goodness.
that's free? They always say the best things in life are free.
there you go. And that's one of the best things in life, is to understand and be aware of the first people on the block to know what's going on down here.
Absolutely. We want you to be at the front of that line, and we really appreciate it when you subscribe to the channel and you hit that like button. And there is a lot to talk about when it relates to, as you said, just being prepared. Even once you're living in Florida, we all live through June through November,
Right.
every single year, and it's usually a very positive experience. And I think one of the ways to do that is for you to look at the video we post in the upper right hand corner. That'll talk to you all about how to best be prepared for hurricane season when you live in Florida. So make sure you check that out before you leave. And have a great day.
Bye now.